But the Honorable Minister of Local Government, basically going back to the history of our members were harassed or under the hands of the Zambia Police Service. And you were saying we wouldn't want to slide back to those dark days of seeing members being harassed. And our standing orders equally provide for privileges of members of parliament. And one of the privileges is such that a member must not be in any way prevented from performing his duties without the consent of the Speaker. So, now the contradictions. The Honorable Minister of Local Government was giving assurances that no one should be harassed. The Minister of Home Affairs also comes with his own contradictory position. I must make it very clear that members are not demanding for any immunity which they don't have. Members, like other citizens, are subjective to the same laws that other citizens are subjective to. And so it's not the question of members avoiding to be arrested if they breach the law, but the manner in which members are treated is what is being contested. You are called honorable members. Some honorable members and have been ministers. By entitlement, you go and get those gunshots when someone has died. It's a show of respect that someone has earned for saving the nation. So why shouldn't that same respect be accorded to these citizens when they are still alive? So all the members are demanding for is to be treated as leaders who are well known. They are only about 155. And we are not just saying opposition members. It's members of parliament across board. So the issue of abducting members like a common criminal does not make sense at all. And that's what the report was condemning. So Honorable Jack Mumbu should not justify wrongdoing. Because we all remember the complaints they had as opposition. They are in government today. They are not going to be in government forever. Okay, so the same police service which was there when MMD was in government, when PF was in government, is the same Zambia Police Service. So we must encourage them to do their work professionally. What's wrong with saving a member of parliament so that the Speaker who assigns members to do duties is able to plan that a member is not going to be available at this point in time because of the police wanting to interact with the honorable member of parliament. So the members are not asking for special rights that they don't have, but they do have privileges that they earn when they are elected by the fellow citizens. And so to see him wanting to justify wrongdoing is wrong in itself. And we expect the Minister of Home Affairs to be above board, being a lawyer himself, and knowing that today's minister, like ours, tomorrow there will be someone else. And so tours of duty begin and end. Lastly, we just want to comment on the court ruling that came out of the court, the Constitutional Court. You saw the consent judgment which the Attorney General entered into with the 35 police officers who were removed from the police service and removed from the payroll before they could get their entitlements. We warned them that they are breaching the Constitution even then. All of you have seen that consent judgment. It's now calls for government to reinstate those police officers on the payroll and pay them their arrears with interest. So government is now made to pay to start paying interest which they shouldn't have been paying. It's a waste of resources. Dr. Peter Machungwa, you yourself have decided to be relegated from former Minister of Home Affairs to go and be chairman of a police service commission. If it was me, I would retire and go sit in Shwangan in the first place. 2, you should not politicize that institution. That's why we have always taken people that understand the police service in the past to chair that police service commission, because they know the affairs of the police. How can you get the politician to be chairperson and you get someone to deputize him who has got the only qualification of being a former wife to a police officer? How does it work? Go and ask them if you think I'm lying. Dr. Peter Machungwa, a politician, former Minister of Home Affairs, has accepted to be reduced to go and be chairperson of that component of Home Affairs. How? So, we are calling upon you to stop harassing members of the Zambia police. Those police officers joined the Zambia police when Dr. Peter Machungwa was Minister of Home Affairs. How can they become cadres today? These are senior officers that have invested their time, their careers in serving the nation as police officers. It had to take the Constitutional Court to interpret the Constitution that they were not supposed to be removed from the payroll before they got their entitlement. And we commend the Attorney General for not wasting court's time. But you go further and ensure that the system restores them before you get people ignoring that judgment. So I want to just end by encouraging the new Inspector General of Police. You heard the report which we tabled in Parliament and which pointed to the frustrations of officers who feel that the command should not be taken from retirement. But you're already there. So what you need to do is to ensure that you motivate your officers. Work with them. Let's not abuse officers who are professionals. Like I've said, tours of duty come and they go. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Whip. We've heard for ourselves. There are certain things which I think this government should start avoiding, whereby if we follow the laws, some of these things we've heard which have been alluded by the Chief Whip cannot be happening. At this moment, I call upon our legal chairman, who is going to tackle the issue concerning the arrest of Patriotic Front SG. I call upon you, Honorable Son.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in Parliament, where we have the right to exercise our freedom as people's representative. I recognize the leader of the opposition, the Chief Whip, and all the senior members of Patriotic Front who are members of Parliament as well. I recognize you are friends from the press. This interactive forum continues to be very important to us. Before I make my remarks, I just also want to join the Chief Whip in congratulating or acknowledging the position taken by the Attorney General not to defend that case that actually had no defense. Our expectation is that that consent judgment is going to be complied with to the letter and spirit by the government, by ensuring that those affected officers are brought back to work with all the full benefits they may have lost at the time that they've been kicked out of the service. The service we should always try to ensure that our police service is professional. You can never find a police service that belongs to the MMD, or one that belongs to the Patriotic Front, or one that belongs to the UPND. We know that we're going to come back to government. We will not accuse the UPND of having employed cadres, or we're not going to accuse officers who will be serving at that time as UPND cadres, because we expect that even at this time, they'll be allowed to discharge their function with integrity and professionalism. I was also elected Honorable Leader of Opposition to hear the Acting Leader of Government Business in the House, the Minister of Home Affairs, acknowledging and making a statement that Her Honor the Vice President has not resigned, and that she has actually is acting as President in the absence of the incumbent. I think this confusion was created because of the statements that were made yesterday. The announcement fell short of explaining that the Vice President was not in the House because she was acting. We were just told in the absence of the Vice President, somebody was going to be leader of government business in the House. Of course, the public did not take that kindly. They felt something had happened which the government was not able to announce publicly. It is very important that when the Republican President undertakes an international visit, a formal notification is given to the state, to the nation, so that citizens know where their president is and who in his absence is acting, which is usually supposed to be the Vice President. I think we can avoid such kind of misunderstandings if the statements coming from the First House are very clear and unambiguous. My role here is to discuss the issue concerning the arrests of senior members of the party, including junior members of the party and those who are associated with the Patriotic Front. I always preface my statement by reminding the nation that His Excellency the Republican President, so fresh from the time that he was elected, made an announcement that his government was going to be a government of laws, that there was going to be governance in accordance with the rule of law. I have always challenged the Republican President that the rule of law does not move alone. It is a Siamese twin with what we call in law due process. That means if you're going to say you're going to govern the country through the rule of law, you undertake that any person who is going to be subject to the law, anybody who is going to be alleged to have made an infraction of the law, is going to be treated in a manner that endears due process. In other words, you should avail him to the processes that are available in the law to ensure that if he's going to have to defend an allegation against him, he will be accorded what is provided for in Article 18 of the Constitution to put up a formidable defense, which includes, among other things, choosing the lawyers of the choice that you would like to use to represent. What we have seen in the last 2 years is that when a person who is alleged to have committed a crime comes from the Patriotic Front, either as a leader or associates with the Patriotic Front as a sympathizer, those people are not given what is expected in terms of treatment. We have raised issues about how our senior members were being abducted by the police. In most of these offenses that our colleagues are facing before the police, these are offenses where you can just simply send out a call out and say to him, we would like you to attend before the police at a particular time, and we'll discuss this issue with you, and if we think you've committed an offense, we will subject you to the process of investigation and present you before the courts of law where you can defend yourself. That's the way it's supposed to be. But is this not applying in the case of, like I said, PF officials and those who are saddled with it? We raised these issues even before. Honorable Shakafuswa was a victim. Honorable Munia Zuru was a victim. When we took Honorable Kalimi to the police, we explained the leader of opposition stopped doing what he was doing, which was a very important assignment in Parliament, to come and help his member of Parliament who was being subjected to something that we considered was beneath due process. We had a discussion with one very senior official, at Force Headquarters or Police Headquarters, and we said we must accord due respect to members of Parliament and even other senior politicians who have, undertaken in life to provide a public service to the nation. And this is regardless of whether they belong to the UPND, MMD, Independents, or the Patriotic Front. As long as somebody is called an honorable member of Parliament, there must be some manner in which you handle cases involving them. We are not saying that they don't commit offenses. But when a person who is a public official, when a person who enjoys certain privileges under the law is alleged to have committed an offense, there's a procedure that you must invoke. And that procedure ensures that the person continues to enjoy his respect, even when you are investigating him or when you present him before the court of law. We were assured by that police officer, senior police officer, that going forward, if they're going to deal with any senior member of the Patriotic Front, especially members of Parliament, at least they'll take an opportunity to call the leader of opposition and bring it to his attention that Honorable Chisanga is alleged to have committed this offense. We would like you to present him before the Force Headquarters or the nearest police office from where Mr. Chisanga is going to be found. And we expected this was going to be the new modus operandi. Lo and behold, you saw what happened to Ambassador. Yes, he is not a member of Parliament, but Mr. Mwamba saved this country in very high positions in the diplomatic sense. He worked as as ambassador to South Africa, including to the AU in Ethiopia. His position at the AU, he served with distinction. This country benefited immensely from Mr. Mwamba's service at Addis Ababa. We are not saying he should be given any special treatment, but our argument is that if he's going to be treated as somebody who's committed an offense, there must be due process. That's what the rule of law entails. Mr. Mwamba was abducted. The very issue that we've been saying even in Parliament, that MPs from Patriotic Front and senior members of Patriotic Front are being abducted in instances where they can only just be given a call out and they go to the police. He was abducted in full view of people, and those who were taking films were their cameras confiscated or mobile phones confiscated. We are informed that even the manager at the car wash where he was apprehended from, was arrested because it was alleged that he's the one who hid the key from the police for them not to get Mr. Mwamba's motor vehicle. Because if you know what happened, it actually remained at the car wash. When they went to force headquarters, they decided for themselves to go back to the car wash to go and see if they can seize the motor vehicle as well. Fortunately, in order to keep it protected, Mrs. Mwamba used a spare key and drove it out of the premises. And they then decided to arrest even the person who was the supervisor at that car wash. This was all intended to ensure that if you, as journalists, are going to be covering me when I'm being arrested, you risk being arrested yourselves as well. Because this has no limitation. You must understand it very, very clearly. And that's why we keep calling on Zambians to wake up, arise, because we are now getting into an area of police brutality. I was late to come here today because I'm also pursuing the matter of the young men who were arrested. Up to now, they have not been charged. There's Andy Luchende, I think all of you know. There's Thompson P. They were arrested. They have spent now close to a week in custody with no charges at all. I had to leave Parliament earlier because I wanted to go and engage senior police officers because we can't keep citizens behind bars without charging them. This is not in keeping with the law. This is also not in keeping with what was said by the Republican President himself when he declared that they're not going to hold suspects without evidence. It is very clear in the case of Andy and Thompson that the state has nothing on them. They are basically keeping them as a means of intimidating any other person who is going to circulate whatever information is alleged to be circulating on social media. We have raised an issue with that documentation that they made the subject of this investigation. Because as we know, as leaders, that the Patriotic Front members have not circulated that item. And not even those who are associated with PF have been circulating. We know where this originated from. We know that it even did more circulation on UPND blogs on social media. But no UPND official has been arrested up to this time. That shows you that the way they are administering justice in this country is lopsided. I came here just to come and update the media. I'm actually going back because I've been assured now. I hope this assurance is a real assurance that we're going to have a meeting with the police officers who are investigating this matter with a view that maybe we can get these young boys admitted to police court at Woodlands Police Station. So I'm supposed to be there at 14 hours. But I also wanted to make mention of a fact that is very close to our heart, the one involving our Secretary General. If you've seen, we've had this rat race between our Secretary General and the magistrate who's hearing a case in Kawambwa, where our Secretary General raised an issue of concern. He's thinking sincerely that this magistrate is incapable of being independent because he has come across information that suggests that this magistrate is prepared to do a miscarriage of justice in the matter where he's being charged with a criminal offense. He raised that issue with a view to getting this magistrate to recuse himself. The magistrate has not recused himself. He has continued hearing the matter. On the material day when he was supposed to be in Kawambwa, he also was supposed to appear in a matter where he is charged of contempt of court, which are criminal proceedings in the High Court. Now, if you know the hierarchy of the courts in this country, when you are supposed to appear before two courts on the same day, you are at liberty to choose to go to the senior court and notify the junior court that I can't come to your court because I'm before a senior court. And that's what Honorable Chilangwa had done. Because he was in Lusaka appearing before Honorable Katanekwa, he then communicated to Kawambwa that he's not able to go to that court because there's a conflict. Unfortunately, the magistrate was unyielding. Now, this is the magistrate against whom a complaint was pending. If he was a reasonable magistrate, and if he was ethical indeed, he would have said, look, this person has already raised issues with me. I'm not going to take steps that are going to aggravate the situation. But unfortunately, he issued a bench warrant. Our colleague decided to challenge the bench warrant in accordance with the law. He brought up the matter in the High Court. He has appeared in the High Court. He presented the scenario to the judge in the High Court. To our misfortune, we were told that the judge has now delivered a judgment in which he has said that it is not an excuse for Honorable Chilangwa to appear in Kawambwa purely because he's appearing on what the magistrate here considered an interlocutory application before the High Court judge. Now, the reality is that there was no interlocutory application before the High Court judge. The interlocutory application was an application that the lawyers for Honorable Sampa had made to obtain leave to commence contempt proceedings against Honorable Chilangwa and others, including our chairman for information, Honorable Nakachina. So there were no interlocutory applications before the High Court. There was actually criminal proceedings. And if you have got 2 criminal cases pending before 2 courts, like I said earlier, your obligation is to appear before a senior most court, because it's actually contempt not to appear before a senior most court compared to a junior court. But unfortunately, we now have run into a situation where even the judge herself, or whichever judge has delivered this judgment, has created confusion. That now, even at the most, even when you are facing criminal charges before the High Court and in a subordinate court, somewhat you must be able to show up between the 2 courts at the same time. Now, this is not justice. This, in our assessment, is miscarriage of justice. And we have made an issue, concerning Honorable Chilangwa, not to vilify you or undermine you. I think everybody knows that the Honorable Chilangwa is a disabled person. The law expects you to have special treatment for those individuals who fall in that category because of instances of abuse that arise if you don't handle them properly. We think that Honorable Chilangwa is a victim of abuse by the justice system, is a victim of abuse by an individual court, which had a duty to ensure that they offer him the treatment that he deserves, like anybody else who finds himself in Honorable Chilangwa's capacity. Not only that, but also because, like I've just repeatedly said here, there was a clear conflict for him to appear before the 2 courts. He should have been given an opportunity and a benefit of doubt, so that he comes to appear before the court at an appropriate time after he clears himself from the senior court. Now, our assessment is that these things are happening to us purely because the government or the party in government has dedicated itself to the total destruction of the Patriotic Front. They think that we are the only ones who can give them a challenge, and they would rather remove us from the contest. This is, if you connect this to what is happening with the deregistration that we've been fighting from April, in fact from February up to now. I just came from Force Headquarters. I was lucky I ran into the officers who are responsible for these clearances of fingerprints and biodatas. According to them, as at today, in fact, as at Monday this week, everything that we had been requested to do as Patriotic Front, we have submitted and they've cleared them. We are now hopeful that we are not going to hear some spokesperson from some ministry making a declaration that we still are under the threat of deregistration. If we hear that, we will consider it a political fight against us because we've complied with the law. And the Societies Act doesn't only apply to political parties, it applies to other institutions as well. But we as a political party have religiously been compliant with the Societies Act from the time of inception, from the time that Patriotic Front was registered. It has been entirely compliant. Even this time when they were raising those issues against us, we had already complied. But because we know that this issue is both political and legal, we decided to comply on both sides. We didn't want to make political noise. When they said the number of office bearers is not enough, we added another number of office bearers. We now have 15 office bearers with the Registrar of Societies as opposed to 10. The Act requires us to have 10, but we've ended up submitting 15 so that we don't have any issue concerning whether Patriotic Front is non-compliant or not. So our expectation is that we are going to be treated with some amount of dignity, both from the Registrar of Societies and from the Line Ministry itself, the Ministry of Home Affairs, from where some of these statements which are disparaging have been coming from. The permanent secretary of the ministry is on record having threatened registration. Mr. Tabo Kawana, in which capacity nobody knows, is on record having threatened our registration. You can't deregister an institution that has fully complied with the law. But we know that these people are spirited. They are very intent on ensuring that we don't exist come the end of this year. But I've always maintained, and I can maintain as I conclude, that Patriotic Front, if you think it's a political party, you are making a mistake. Patriotic Front is a living organism. It doesn't only have members. It has leaders, members, and supporters who take it to their heart. You can't, play around with a political party that spent 10 years in government trying to change the lives of people in this country. Our policy and our ideology is very clear. We want to continue bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. That's why PF is a party which we call a friend of the poor. The ones who are in here are aristocrats. They are oligarchs. Their friends are the rich people. In fact, the poor have been abandoned from 12 August 2021. And the poor are only waiting for the time that August 2026 will come to go to that polling station and return a political party that they believed in, a party they could trust, a party of integrity, and a party which we want to continue transforming this country into a construction site because Zambia needs to develop, and you can only develop if you've got daring men and women who work from morning to evening trying to transform lives. So you cannot kill the Patriotic Front. In fact, we are not your enemies. We are your counterpart. We are here to provide checks and balances. Do your work. If you are going to do what you promise people you're going to do, believe it or not, even possibly some members of PF will vote for you. But if you continue ruling by deception, by lies like we have seen now, your days are numbered. We'll be coming back for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Sanga. There is one element I think which Honorable Kampion will bring touch on, which would be so much of interest to you journalists, the issue of the cyber security bill. Because if we are not careful, I think this is one bill which will make most of us journalists being arrested because of maybe one or two issues. Let me once again ask Honorable Kampion just to say one or two issues concerning the cyber security bill.
I think, Honorable, actually it's something that already our Chairperson League has spoken to. Yesterday, you recall that we were adopting a report of our committee responsible for broadcasting, communication, and they had a topic they covered, which was the role of ZICTA in preventing cybercrime. I must say that we are glad that the New Dawn government has now appreciated the rationale behind the introduction of the Cyber Act of 2021, Cyber Act number 2 of 2021, because we in government did realize that there were a number of crimes that were emerging in the cyberspace. The only unfortunate part is the selective enforcement of that act, which our colleagues have undertaken. Why do I say so? And just like I spoke yesterday in Parliament, is that there are certain crimes that they are ignoring and they're quick to act on certain crimes. And I cited examples even yesterday that if any one of you calls me on my mobile line, we have a discussion, and without my consent, you record me, at that point you are breaching the law. You record me without my consent, you are breaching the law. Worse still, if you circulate what I have discussed with you online without my consent, it's also further breaking of the law. Now, members of the public, you do recall that there were two senior government officials who recorded each other when they were discussing the legislation of certain political party, a permanent secretary and an advisor to the president. And that discussion went viral. It's not like the way they are discussing our legislation. You have never heard of anyone being called to police under the same law to go and get answerable. Recently, you heard of a conversation between the head of state and the minister of a province discussing distribution of maize from FRA. And it was an extensive discussion. As we speak today, we have never heard of anyone being called by police to be accountable. And in fact, presidential discussions must be at the apex. So if it can't concern you that the presidential discussion of distributing maize needs to be investigated, you want to start apportioning blame, I don't know if you are saying it's a PF that was in that discussion. So we want to see the law enforcement agencies enforce that law on everyone, because that's what the law is. It shouldn't have a face. But lastly, you have seen me as a whip standing next to our Honorable MP for Chamana South, Honorable Mungando. To our members, is just to assure you that the Honorable Member is still a bona fide member of the Patriot Front, and the issues surrounding him are being handled administratively by the party, and you must have read that he has been written to by the party, and as a law-abiding member of the party, we make him avail himself and deal with these matters administratively. So for now, we could have allowed him to say anything, but until his issues are concluded by the party, we will allow him to have some privacy. So just for you, even for you as members of the press, because we have read a lot of stories covered about him, but he's still here, and we are going to, as whip, going to make sure that he responds to the issues that the party would want him to respond to, and at an opportune time, he will be allowed to share what he will have to share with the members of the party and the public. So thank you very much once again, and Honorable Mungando, welcome.
Thank you once again, Chief Whip. At this moment, we're now going to touch a very contentious issue, which we've debated on the floor of the House this week, where our acting Minister of Finance came to give a ministerial statement concerning the 65 million kwacha. At this moment, let me call upon Honorable Muila to shed more light on this issue concerning the 65 million. Honorable Muila, I call upon you.
Thank you very much. Let me ride on the protocols already observed. Yes, I think the topic I want to touch on is the issue of the 65 million kwacha, which we all understand the genesis of. It was in 2021, around November, I think, the investigation teams by the state informed the nation that they have found 65 million kwacha in cash at the residence of one Faith Misa. And indeed that money was displayed and taken into custody by the Anti-Corruption Commission. And from that moment, the next event we came to hear was around February of 2022, when there was that event by the Minister of Education, the Minister of Finance, that they have used that 65 million kwacha to pay for the students at the University of Zambia. And the issue seemed to have gone quiet until just a few weeks ago, when the nation was alerted through the letter, the management letter, which the Auditor General wrote to Anti-Corruption Commission. And among the things that they raised in that letter was that they were unable to find that 65 million kwacha in the government account, Control 99, the famous as it is. Now that was a communication from the auditor to the audit client, who is the Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, when you reach that stage, as Honorable Mungando was saying, I've been an auditor before. I'm an accountant. I've done auditing of so many clients in my previous life before I came to Parliament. And I want to tell you that the audit process, when you have your auditor on site, they will give you the scope of their audit. They will tell you what they have come to do and the items or the issues that they would like to look at for you to avail information and facts. So that scope was shared with the Anti-Corruption Commission as the audit client at that time. And among the many items that the Office of the Auditor General, who were just doing their constitutional mandate to audit state institutions, they requested to find out the status of that 65 million kwacha, which was obtained in cash from the residents of Faith Msonda into their custody. Now, the audit progresses. The auditors come on site. They will tell you how long they will be on site. They will tell you what items they will be looking for. And among the things, as we have come to know, they sought to understand where was that 65 million, since SEC at the time of the audit did not have it in cash. And obviously, the Anti-Corruption Commission said we gave that money to the government into Control 99. And under normal circumstances, as the Auditor General did, They went to look into that account where Anti-Corruption Commission said the money had been deposited in the normal course of their audit, but they did not find that 65 million. And having been through that process myself, I want to mention that I'm sure every day when the Auditor General was on site at the Office of the Anti-Corruption Commission, they were asking them about that evidence. Give us the account so that we see this money where it was taken. And since that account is at Bank of Zambia, I'm sure they went to the Bank of Zambia to get an extract of the statement for the period that the Anti-Corruption Commission claimed to have taken the money into that account. And they didn't see it. I'm sure they came back to Anti-Corruption Commission that you told us this money is in this account, we have not found it. I can even imagine, the explanations. We'll give you tomorrow, okay, we'll give you in the afternoon, as clients usually do. And when there's something fishy, usually it's a prolonged, it's a prolonged discussion. But as we know, auditors are not on site forever. Their audits are time-bound. So I'm sure their time to stay at the Anti-Corruption Commission came to an end. They had to leave, but as they were leaving, there were outstanding matters which, according to them, did not satisfy their scope of work. Hence, writing that letter that we are withdrawing from the site as per our procedure because our time has come to an end. We have to move on. We have to conclude this audit. But as we withdraw, here is the management letter of the issues that we have found concern with. And among them is that we are unable to find this 65 million kwacha in the account where you said you had put it. So that is where the whole story started. The management letter, when the auditor puts such content in the management letter, they are saying it's now up to you. We have given you an opportunity, we have given you the time and our attention, but you are unable to satisfy us. So we are withdrawing. It's now up to you to give us further evidence to satisfy our concern. And that never happened until that issue came to Parliament. If we remember how it came to Parliament, Honorable Kampiong, our whip, raised the issue because as the Anti-Corruption Commission and the Ministry of Finance, including even the President of the Republic of Zambia himself, were now responding anyhow to that audit query. Everyone was saying, well, everyone knows that this money was spent on the students at the University of Zambia. Now the problem comes as a parliament because every government money, whether it's 1 kwacha or 65 million kwacha, before it is spent, it must be approved, allocated and approved by parliament. Hence that order, point of order. Who approved that you spend this money on the students at the University of Zambia? And now if you remember, the acting Minister of Finance comes to Parliament and tells us that, this money was spent on the students as everyone knows, and here is the appropriation bill and the appropriation act which Parliament approved. But that was misinformation of the highest order. Because if I want to tell you, that grand event, they call it, when they were saying that they are handing over 65 million kwacha, happened in February. In February 2022. The supplementary budget which the Minister of Finance brought, which the acting minister was quoting that Parliament approved to spend that money, it came to Parliament in in July, 5 months after they had spent that money. Parliament was debating and approving the appropriation bill for the supplementary budget in July, and it was signed by the President in August, 6 months after that 65 million purportedly has been spent. So that was misinformation to the nation that actually Parliament approved. Parliament did not approve. And so that is why we are raising this contention. So where was the money when it was being spent? And among the questions as you followed, the minister claimed to have brought some statement on the floor of the House, that here is the statement, you will see that 65 million is there. So our question is, if the minister can take a few days to come with a statement and present to Parliament, why has it taken, or why was the Anti-Corruption Commission unable to do that at the time that the audit was being conducted? Because they had all the time and the opportunity and the access to all the audit information. Why was the Anti-Corruption Commission unable to provide that information? It had to take Parliament, and the minister purported to have brought that statement. We scrutinized those documents. We were not satisfied. If you have access to that information, you will see that it raised even more questions than answers. And among the many questions we were raising was that we need to see the deposits, because remember, this was cash that was obtained from a residence, taken into custody, and at some point it is reported to have gone into the financial system. So cash was taken to the bank. And usually what happens, when you take money to your bank account or to anyone's bank account, you leave the money with the bank, you walk out of the bank not empty-handed, but with evidence that you have deposited that money, which is a deposit slip which we were asking. The minister was given a further opportunity to present to Parliament the deposit slip on which that money was taken to the bank. Again, it was a missed opportunity, because when the minister came, he laid some documents on the table claiming, here is the deposit slip. The discussion is over. And you know, we have a lot of experts, including myself in Parliament. We got hold of those documents and we looked through. A deposit slip is a simple document. I'm sure all of you have interacted with the banks before. You know, it's just a slip with the bank stamp and the details of what that money is about. I want to confirm to the people of Zambia that there was no deposit slip amongst the documents which the minister, acting Minister of Finance, laid on the table to show that that 65 million was deposited into the bank account. It was not there. It's raising more questions. And that is why, again, you heard the Speaker yesterday making another ruling. That Minister of Finance, please, can you come back now with conclusive information so that we put this matter to rest? Can you come back here with the deposits? It's a simple question that you, the Zambians, are asking. And usually, in my training as an auditor, I want to tell you that whenever you see confusion around an issue like this, just know that there is something fishy. That is the fact. Whenever you see confusion, if you ask someone that, why are you stepping 2 steps forward, and they started, no, first I started by going this, and no, I'm just asking, why have you done 2 steps forward? It's a simple question to say, I want to pick this. But the moment someone starts to give you history, no, there's something fishy. And the Zambians must know. This is not a PF matter. This matter was raised by the Office of the Auditor General. It's not us, the PF, who asked the Auditor General to go and audit the Anti-Corruption Commission. They were doing their routine constitutional mandate, and in the process brought this issue to the fore. And so we are also asking, what happened to this man? When you see people, you know, having difficulties to put this matter to rest, just know that there is confusion. There is something fishy about this 65 million. It is easy to conclude that, in fact, it was not even used or spent on what we are meant to believe that it was spent on. So we want to know the whereabouts of this man. We as a PF did not send the Auditor General to go and audit Anti-Corruption Commission. They were doing their mandate, and they have brought up this issue. And it's every Zambian's concern to see that our resources are protected. There is integrity and transparency and accountability in the management of public resources. And that 65 million is among the many public resources that we are interested to see how it has been used. And so here's an opportunity again to the Minister of Finance. The Speaker ruled that next week he must come with that deposit slip. And we still have questions. Even as he comes with that deposit slip, we also want to know, why has it taken him as the minister and not Anti-Corruption Commission to have put this matter to rest at the time that the audit was being done? That is the question. Because the Anti-Corruption Commission had the time and the opportunity to attend to all the audit queries at the time that the audit was taking place. So what transpired? Why was this information not provided? If the statement contained that money which was saying deposited in that Control 99, why was it not given at that time? We don't want to raise speculations about the statement being manufactured, but it's anyone's guess. I can tell you, it's an easy question to answer. If someone asks you, can you give me your bank reconciliation, can you give me your bank statement, it's very easy to get from the file and provide. Why was this not done at that time? So we look forward to receiving the Minister of Finance next week in Parliament with more information, and we hope we'll put this matter to rest. But we are very ready. Our minds are even more inquisitive with the information that will come next week. So we are ready. We will scrutinize, and we will make sure that the Ministry of Finance, the Anti-Corruption Commission, everyone involved is held accountable on this issue. We are doing this on behalf of the Zambian people, because there was a lot of stories and excitement about this money. And so we want to see, where has it gone? How has it been spent? So next week, we will update you again what the Minister of Finance will bring to the House. If it will be convincing, we will come back and we will tell you we have settled the matter. If it will raise more questions, we will still come back to you and tell you there's something even more fishy about this issue. But I want to leave you with this question. As I said, when you hear people having difficulties justify simple questions like this surrounding 65 million, just know that there is something fishy about it. And we hope next week we will find out what this issue is. But it will not rest until we are satisfied. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Mwila, for a well-elaborated presentation. The issue here is what the minister said to say when this money was confiscated, it was deposited into a Zanaco account. So our interest is to see the deposit strip from Zanaco account, which will show 65 million. And then how it moved now from Zanaco to Bank of Zambia. I think this is where we should draw our interest from. It's how the money moved now from that Zanaco account to Control 99. At this moment, I would like to call upon our leader of opposition to come and summarize the whole issues which have been discussed, and to wind up our interaction. I call upon you, leader of opposition.
Thank you, Honorable. I recognize the presence of the whips, members of Central Committee, honorable members that have spoken before me, members of the press. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your continued support. This platform offers our people out there yet another opportunity to learn more about what is happening in Parliament and also in the country generally. You know that the procedures of Parliament are governed by standing orders, and sometimes we are unable to exhaust all the business on the floor of the House. And we take advantage of this platform to be able to explain certain things and clarify certain outstanding matters. Now, ladies and gentlemen, countrymen and women, today we have Honorable Charles Milupi joining the list of ministers against whom we raise motions of censure. We had a meeting with the whips this morning. We are basically finalizing, assembling these motions to be presented before the floor of the House soon. And the reason for moving a motion of censure against Honorable Charles Milupi, because he came to the floor of the House and lied to the nation and indeed to the House that he had tendered on the floor of the House a copy of the deposit slip of 65 million kwacha. He went against the order of Madam Speaker, who ordered him to bring a deposit slip. He lied to the whole nation. He came with a bundle of documents that did not contain a deposit slip as earlier required of him. So that is a very, very serious offense against our rules on the floor of the House. I'm sure Comrade Charles Milupi, in his limited wisdom, he thought would not survey the documents that he tendered on the table. But we've been pursuing this matter very seriously because it involves a lot of money. We took a lot of interest and surveyed the documents and discovered that the deposit slip was not among the documents that he brought on the floor of the House. So we have taken up this matter seriously, and we want to censure him for lying on the floor of the House and lying to the many Zambians that were waiting to see that deposit slip. Ladies and gentlemen, countrymen and women, that mysterious deposit slip eluded the auditor and everybody else, including, Parliament. That is the most expensive deposit slip Zambia has ever had. It has just disappeared. God knows where that deposit slip is. As the auditor was explaining, my dear friend, Member of Parliament from Ufurio, the question here, let's go to original position. The original position was that the Auditor General said there is no money in Control 99. That's all. I'm an auditor myself in my earlier training. So for me, that's a starting point. Before we even go far, the Auditor General says the 65 million is not in Control 99. And the Minister has not responded to that query. Nobody has explained as to why the Auditor General was unable to see the 65 million in that account. And that's where the problem is. So that deposit slip is not there as far as I'm concerned. It's not there because that money was stolen. Comrade Miller, for me, I'll not wait. We can't wait. There's nothing to wait for. Honorables, look, the Auditor General had interaction with the audit client for some time. They were unable to see the 65 million. They were unable to see the deposit slip. He raised a management letter. The Minister has had an opportunity to come to the floor of the House on 2 occasions. And that deposit slip is not there. And we want us to still wait for him to come back to the floor of the House. Giving him an opportunity now to come with other documents that we may not want to speculate on. The Honorable Member is talking about Matero. I don't know what is in Matero in relation to the deposit slips that may be brought on the floor of the House. Okay? We don't want to think about Matero. We don't want any documents from Matero to be tendered on the floor of the House. Yeah, so for me, I'm saying, countrymen and women, what is clear is that that 65 million was stolen. What we're supposed to be talking about now is that let the law enforcement agencies swing into action and bring to book the criminals that took advantage of that money. That's all. Release Emmanuel Mwamba, release Zumani, release Andy and Thompson. Those are innocent. What Zambians want is to see who took advantage of that 65 million. The stories about money going to students, those are stories. We understand the procedures through which approvals are done. We sit in that house. We never saw that. We never saw that request. So countrymen and women, we are dealing with a government that is dishonest. And remember that I want to take my hat off to Comrade Stumbeko Msokotwane. He's an honorable gentleman. There's a reason why he didn't come to stand by this particular defense and defend this position. Honorable Msokotwane took leave conveniently because he wanted to preserve his integrity. Comrade Msokotwane, we all know him. He's a gentleman with impeccable repute. And to be forced to come and defend a position like that, he said, no, let me take leave. Let somebody else do it. So we all know the embarrassment that Comrade Msokotwane saved himself from. Could you imagine that the finance minister now, negotiating debt restructuring, negotiating with the IMF, he would have been caught up in this 65 million web. He simply removed himself from there. He said, look, I've got a much bigger assignment to try and save Zambia, restructure Zambia's debt, and save the many lives from dying out of shortage of drugs and many other things. So please excuse me, let somebody else do it. Comrade Msokotwane, on that point alone, I wish to salute you. You are a gentleman, you did the right thing. You left it up to others who could take such careless risks to come and destroy their reputations on the floor of the House by bringing, questionable documents. Comrade Msokotwane, continue on that trajectory. There may be a glimmer of hope that we may have 1 or 2 honest people in the UPND. Maybe 1 or 2. Comrade Msokotwane may just be one of them, because the rest of them have got questionable reputations, as it were. So there's a reason why Honorable Msokotwane was not the one to come and defend that very lousy position, because that deposit slip is just not there. The money was misused. Suddenly, like I said last time, in Bemba we have the saying, Uwushikumu afuile, chimbwi cha nyemfwi. From nowhere, we have seen tantamen now everywhere in Freedom Way. Leaders are giving money directly. Yes. We are seeing people, this Jito, from nowhere, Jito is liquid. He appears at shopping malls just giving money carelessly to money changers. Aren't you suspicious? From where? From nowhere, Jito is liquid. Leaders in the UPND are going to Freedom Way. People are lined up and there's tantamen, something that they condemn. And on the other side, 65 million is missing. So Zambians, let's not be fooled. That 65 million has been stolen by criminals within the UPND government. The criminals have taken advantage and stolen 65 million kwacha. For me, there is no deposit slip that anyone will bring on that floor of the house that I'll respect, because they missed an opportunity on 2 occasions. We didn't need a bunch of documents. We only needed 1-page copy of a deposit slip. That's all. Comrade Charles Milopi brought a bunch. When the order by Madam Speaker was bring the deposit slip, he brought a bunch. And for any discerning person, we became suspicious. Why has he brought a bunch instead of a 1-page? We decided to look through. He thought we would not look through those documents. We did. And there's no deposit slip whatsoever. So he lied to the House, he lied to the nation, and that's for which reason we are going to move a motion of censure. So ladies and gentlemen, this is very clear that we have a government, a very dangerous party in government that is ready, is on a warpath to plunder any resource that they find along the way. A typical example is the 65 million kwacha. They have gone all over, confiscating, impounding vehicles so that they take advantage of them. So the fight against corruption cannot be won when those that are fighting corruption are the corrupt themselves. When you look at the document that brought to light the issue of the 65 million, the same document talked about officers earning allowances that they did not work for. Now, this is the same offense that the officers at the Auditor General's office were suspended for. So we do not know why, up to now, there is no action against officers at the Anti-Corruption Commission who got allowances that they did not work for. In terms of evidence, whether the evidence was illegally obtained, under the rules of evidence, even illegally obtained evidence is evidence. So we want an investigation and action to be taken against officers at the SEC who were busy earning allowances for doing no work. Because that's the same offense for which the officers at the Auditor General's office were charged with. Now we have a situation now where, because of that particular report, officers at the Auditor General's office have all been removed and sent all over the show, different departments. Now, what kind of government do we have? We have a government that does not want to look at itself in the mirror because the picture is very ugly. Every reasonable government waits for an audit report to be able to understand and know how they are positioning themselves and how they're governing the country. This particular government is dead scared to look at itself in the mirror, and that mirror is the audit report. The FIC report is already out. 6.1 billion worth of questionable transactions. Ladies and gentlemen, you remember how President Hakainde Hichilema and his MPs would get excited in the past whenever the FIC report was out. Have you heard any of them talking about the FIC report? Countrymen and women, there is 6.1 billion that has been plundered according to the FIC report. And the president is quiet. The president is saying that they are now in the Champions League. Maybe yes, because of the amounts that are being looted. Those amounts can only belong to the Champions League. Yes. The amounts that are being plundered are colossal. They can only belong to the Champions League. 6.1 billion. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to say that we have a corrupt government in place. The issue of Sensele Mine, an operation sponsored by government officials within KCM, is still going on and still outstanding. There's been no response from government. Our members of parliament, whilst on duty, looking at illicit financial flows, visited KCM, and they found a mechanized syndicated mining operation within KCM. People at KCM have been asked not to question that operation. When you ask about that operation, you are labeled PF, fired and transferred. So we are dealing with a government that is there to oppress citizens. Citizens should not question. And today, you want to promise the people that you will restructure the mining sector. They're not in a hurry. They won't do it. Why? Because the criminals in UPND who are benefiting from Sensele mining operation would like that operation to continue so they can continue collecting the money. That's what it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, when you're talking about corruption, you're talking about the UPND. Grand corruption. I remember one opposition leader, it must have been Dr. Fred Membe, talking about other governments may have been stealing petty cash. Now we have a government that is full of grand corruption. These are just a few examples that we're giving. For me, and for us and my colleagues, members of parliament, we became very suspicious when they began to disturb the office of the Auditor General. Because the office of the Auditor General is an office created by the Constitution. This is an office that is created to ensure that constitutional safeguards are not undermined. The moment you undermine that office, you begin to allow a constitutional safeguards to be undermined. So that office plays a central role to constitutionalism and how a government must obey and respect constitutional provisions. So this is the government that we have in place today. The other point that Honorable Kampiongo touched on is what Honorable Jack Mwimbu has been struggling to try and justify. The truth of the matter is that we know we are not above the law, but as members of parliament, we enjoy certain privileges. We believe that if a member has been found with some questions to answer, they simply should be given a call out to appear before the police. Now, because there are no offenses that these people are committing, it's pure persecution and harassment. They would rather dramatize it. Now, our fear is police action is going to cause a very big problem not too long from now. What happened to Comrade Mwamba? Residents of that area began to react. They were now shouting slogans, "We want change." They can't take that anymore. So it's a warning to the IG that you should not necessarily conduct yourselves in a manner that will bring about breach of peace. The people are losing patience. People reacted. That is the truth. If the police were conducting their activities in a professional manner, why did the police go back and confiscate phones of all those innocent citizens that were taking videos of what had transpired? Why did they confiscate those phones? That was an admittance that indeed they'd done something wrong which they didn't want the general public to see. So, Inspector General of Police, you have talked about sending the police for training. My position is, let's start with the top command. The top command need to be trained. I think there's a lot of cadres that have come into the police service and they think it's a police force where they've got to use brutal force to arrest people or bring people to the police. So conduct thorough training so that we have a professional police service. It's no longer a police force. Many of the people that have been called from retirement still have that mentality of the police force. They may need to be brought in line to understand that it's a police service. They are supposed to offer a service to the people, not what we are seeing now. Now, lastly, I want to talk about Comrade Emmanuel Mwamba, young Andy and young Thompson. They're being punished for allegedly circulating a document, which the government itself said was a fake document. Now, ladies and gentlemen, look at the weightage they are attaching to this quote-unquote fake document. Who bothers so much about the fake document? How much effort or energy do you want to expend on a fake document? Wouldn't you rather just ignore it as a fake document? You make a statement and tell everybody to ignore it. So the position where we stand now, we are now beginning to doubt whether or not those are fake documents. Maybe the church needs to go back to those documents and read the contents of those documents. They may not be fake documents after all. The police, as it is now, are constructively authenticating those documents. I'm now persuaded to think those are not fake documents. Looking at the reaction, this reaction from the police is just a fear that they have about the possible reaction from the church. Because the church has now become aware of what their evil intentions are. I doubt whether those are fake documents. Because the police themselves are authenticating those documents. We didn't bother as MPs. The moment the government said they were fake, we forgot about them. We are now forced to look for those documents and just try and understand what is in those documents. Maybe the church should also look at those documents. They may not be fake after all. Otherwise, the police would not have paid so much attention to those documents. Honorable Mwamba is in there. The police know very well that he did not author those documents. Those documents were on social media much earlier than they were posted on whatever blog that was attached to Comrade Mwamba. But my point is, if you look at the force, if you look at the attention, the energy, the weight that is being attached to those documents, they may not be fake after all. And if they're not fake, it's very, very unfortunate that the government can have such evil plans against the church. We are now forced to talk about the substance of those documents because the government itself is giving weight to those documents. I had occasion to read those documents. It's very, very unfortunate. And if at all that is what they're planning to do, then we have a very big problem with this government. The church has a big problem with this government. So ladies and gentlemen, I just thought we could comment on some of these things that are very topical. But remember that you vote for members of parliament are voted for to represent you. Ministers are expected to be professional and ethical in the manner that they conduct business, especially on the floor of the House. When ministers begin to lie, Comrade Mutoa Piri lied that there was enough maize when there wasn't. Comrade Sylvia Masebo lied when she said there was sufficient drugs when there wasn't. Now Comrade Milupi lied that he brought a deposit slip when he did not. So these are the three cases that we want you to look out for. We are assembling motions of censure so that these ministers can be brought to book. Ladies and gentlemen, with those few remarks, I'd like to thank you. Oh yes, yes, as Comrade Chisanga earlier commented, I think the confusion around the Vice President's office is on account of the fact that this government is very shy to announce that the President has gone out of the country and that the Vice President, as provided for by the Constitution, is now acting President. I don't know why. This should be very easy to simply say the President has traveled out. Vice President Mutaye Nalumango is now acting President. I don't know why that should be difficult. That is the reason why citizens are now speculating. You know, I mean, Vice President Nalumango was a running mate to President Hakainde Hichilema. And that's how he won. You know, yeah. The reason why we respect her as leader of government business is because she was voted for together with the President. Nobody should relegate the position of the Vice President and feel that maybe you can just ignore her and relegate her. She was voted for at the same time with President Hakainde Hichilema. President Hakainde Hichilema won because he had the Vice President in the name of Mutaye Nalumango, who should act as President whenever he steps out. And there must be a statement made to say the acting President now is Madam Mutaye Nalumango. Then nobody will speculate as to, who is President or whether she has resigned or not. So to want to relegate positions of government, we are members of parliament. We are here to protect and defend our constitution. The fact that we are in the opposition does not mean we should support the wrongdoing by the government trying to relegate the position of the Vice President. she remains vice president, she remains acting president whenever the president is out. So what's so difficult about that? So please, let's accord respect to the vice president. And I'm happy that Honorable Jack Mwimbu, as acting leader of government business, clarified that she hasn't resigned. So the speculations are generated by the way government is acting whenever it comes to dealing with matters surrounding the vice president. She was voted for like President Hakainde Hichilema was, and that's how he won, because he had that vice president as the running mate. Yes, so the president is out there, I think, on a mission to try and broker peace between Ukraine and Russia. We will not want to say so much about it, but we want to remind you that look at the difficult position President Hakainde Hichilema finds himself in. He already took a position in that matter, that you're supporting Ukraine. Yeah. Can you imagine how difficult it is for him now, even as he faces the other people, because his position is known? So that's why we've said, as a country, there is a long tradition that we have kept. Our forefathers, our leaders, and so on, they remained non-aligned. President Kaunda was very strong at that, because he would go and negotiate with Saddam Hussein. He took a neutral position. The entire world would wait for KK, the Zambian president, to go and intervene. He would go personally and meet Saddam Hussein and be able to broker peace. So even as our president has accompanied other leaders from the region, I know that he may be in a very uncomfortable position because of the earlier position that he took. And like we've always said, it's work in progress. We hope that he has learnt a thing or two, such that in future he will not be in a hurry to take positions, because then he would find himself in very uncomfortable position like he has found himself in now. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much to the media.